But yeah, in terms of quick intros, my name is Amresh. I'm one of the co-founders at Multiplier. We build IT access management automation that plugs into JSM. And today, really excited to have Andrew and Austin from ISOS, who are an Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner, join us. Their name is familiar to folks that have been in the ecosystem because they've been around for a while. So I'm really excited for them to share their story today. Before I hand over to them, I just want to do a little bit of context setting on why we're here. So I'm hoping that most of you work in IT or work with Jira, and access management is one of those things that's usually like seems pretty straightforward, but it really starts breaking once you have to run it at scale. And so it's just something that a lot of teams often get blogged on, and we see that teams are stuck because they're drowning in a lot of manual work, and so that's sort of the gap that we fill. So I'm excited for Andrew and Austin to share their story with you today. So with that, I'll hand it over to you both to take it away.
I appreciate that, Amresh. Marshall, if we could add the slides in. Thank you. Cool. So as Amresh said, we're going to cover today how ISOS, we built our access automation for our internal service desk. A couple of quick housekeeping slides. Who are we? I'm Andrew Yarrow. I'm the VP of IT at ISOS. I've been on the IT side for about a year, but prior to that, I was on the consulting side of ISOS. So been in lots of Atlassian environments, seen this access problem a ton of times. I think a couple of our really big customers are already using Multiplier, and they've been really happy with it so far. And so tell a little bit of our story. Joining me today is a member of one of my team members, Austin. He really did the heavy lifting of our Multiplier implementation. So I'm excited for him to show you our use cases, kind of how we did it, the nuts and the bolts, and I'll cover kind of the strategy high level. Again, one more housekeeping slide, like who we are. ISOS Technology, as Amar said, we're an Atlassian partner, specializing in ITSM, cloud migrations, agile at scale, kind of all things Atlassian. So just our agenda for today. First, I'm going to cover like what problem were we trying to solve, and then why did we choose Multiplier. I'm going to pass it off then to Austin. He'll cover how are we using Multiplier, going through a couple of our use cases, app requests, permissions escalations, comments, things like that. And then I'll come back at the end and cover like what did we gain from our implementation of Multiplier, and kind of what are our next steps, and how are we going to continue to build our Multiplier implementation. So what problem were we trying to solve? So just initially, just a high level, what's the problem in numbers? So we support about 150 end users, 3 IT people. In our Okta tenant, right now we have about 60 apps. 25 of those apps we provision based on role-based access, meaning so if you're a salesperson and you start with our company in ISOS, on day one, you're going to have HubSpot access. You're going to have a HubSpot paid license and so on and so forth. So about 25, about half of those apps we auto provision. And so the reality for the other ones is we became the bottleneck. If it wasn't auto provision based off of their role, the requests came in via generic IT tickets in our JSM portal. Lots of apps having their own interfaces, lots of manual provisioning. And when a user submits a request, as we all know, like they don't want it tomorrow. They wanted it yesterday. They didn't want to even have to request it. So they're already, a little bit annoyed at the situation, and now they're putting in a request and waiting for us to get back to them. So we became the bottleneck. In addition, when we would go in and say, okay, we're frustrated, let's go jump on this real quick. We would apply permission. It wouldn't necessarily be a well thought out security approach. So sometimes inconsistent security there, frustrated users. And for us at ISOS as a consulting shop, it would impact billable work. So customer or users that needed to do something, access to a vault in our password manager tool or whatever, wouldn't be able to access it until we got onto that ticket. So one of our core values is aim high, think big. And so when we sat down and thought about the problem, and we looked at all of our requests in our JSM portal, access request was the biggest bundle of requests. So we set out and said, okay, we want to be able to automate about 100%, we want to automate 100% of our access. That's our aim high, think big. The role-based app assignments got us part of the way. It got them, some of the primary ones. We still had that open question of how do we handle the one-offs. So one example in our environment is ChatGPT. We have a Teams license. Anybody can have it. We just didn't want to buy them for everybody. If people weren't using it, we didn't want to pay for a license. So, as of today, like you can go into our JSM portal, our Jira Service Management portal, and hit ChatGPT. It doesn't even require approvals through Multiplier. So they hit the button, the ticket provisions the access and then closes, and we're done. They get it right away. There's less than a minute of waiting on the end user. And the other problem that we had was, what about the occasional access needs? Like, what if they need, an admin license for a day or 2 days, or they need, a Teams license for 30 days for a specific engagement that they're working on? So we didn't really have a great answer. As we'll talk about in a little bit, our answer was sticky notes on our monitor or on our laptops, which got a little cumbersome and awkward. So for us, we thought about like, what's our first step for fixing this bottleneck? Like there's that old adage of let's automate ourselves out of a job. And in reality, like we have plenty of other things to do. We didn't need to do the access requests. It wasn't really a high priority for us, us doing it as a human being. Obviously the access is really important. So we needed an automation tooling that would help us with access requests. Historically, we'd, like that white glove service of we're going to provision you access. We're going to help you get access. We're going to give you the instructions. We're going to have a conversation. It's what I would call, a white glove service. And the only way to scale that is to add more gloves. And in reality, like that wasn't an option for us. Given the size of our company, like we had an appropriately sized team. So how do we switch to this idea of world-class IT versus a white glove? So we set out, we looked around, came across two different options. One was Multiplier and the other one was their Okta identity governance that our Okta sales rep was very excited to tell us about. So in the end, we chose Multiplier. Obviously, we're here. It's a business function, but we didn't want it to be manual labor. And what we liked about Multiplier was it exists in our existing Jira Service Management queue or portal. So, people coming in for all kinds of other IT requests. And we didn't want to have, one portal for, the access requests, one portal for their laptop being broken, one portal, we want it all in one place. So unified requests follows the same approval cycle of everything else and then provisions it into Okta. This also allowed us to put apps into our JSM queue that weren't in Okta, where the Okta option was only available for the Okta apps. The other benefit for us with this was that, we would set out and say, okay, here's the group that we're going to provision people into. And then we would already think about like, what's the security? What are the security levels that we provide that group? And so like security is baked in. We don't have to think about it. We're very intentional with how we provision it. And then we don't have to worry about the security on the back end of it. Obviously, it reduces manual intervention. We don't have to go and do it anymore. And like I said, all of our requests are in JSM today, whether it's IT, whether it's HR, finance, all of our internal operations teams are in JSM. And so like, this is a very similar experience for all of our end users. All right, well, I'm gonna hand it off to Austin. He's gonna kind of go through some of the Multiplier use cases as he's got them implemented and talk through some of the nuts and bolts of it.
Thank you, Andrew. Like Andrew mentioned, my name is Austin, and I'm gonna be going over how we set it up in Multiplier. App requests. Handling the one-offs, access beyond birthright, the non-role-based apps, approval levels vary by data sensitivity, and requests may include different access levels. We decided to create a new Jira request type to use solely with Multiplier. This is what the requester sees when they start the request to an application. After selecting access request, they will see the application catalog of all of our approved and associated applications to this request type. After they select the application, a field will appear below the app catalog. The requester will need to provide details or the use case for this application. This helps us gather the necessary information up front. The more information provided, the faster the request can be approved. So how did we configure this on our side? First, in Multiplier, we connected the integration with Okta. Okta serves as our identity and access management. This allows us to assign a provisioning group created in Okta to a specific application in Multiplier. We associated the applications within our created access request using the application catalog and tags in Multiplier. Any application with the tags shown here, standard, admin, or manual provision, will be displayed to the requester when they select access request, as seen in the earlier slides. How are we able to show app fields to the requester after they select an application from the app catalog? Inside each application within Multiplier, we can add an app field tailored to that particular app. For all of our applications that require elevated permissions, we have added a paragraph app field with the label, please provide details or the use case. And we check the box to require a response before it can be submitted. As we configure more applications, we like having the options to add more app fields, which we can do here in Multiplier with checkbox, dropdowns, and multi-select. Permissions escalation. People want help. Users need more permissions than usual. Temporary elevated access for making admin level changes. We have a full audit trail for compliance and security reviews, and time-bound access with automatic expiration and easy access extensions. As Andrew mentioned, we are a Atlassian partner. We often receive requests for elevated permissions within our org, such as admin access to Jira or Confluence. Using Multiplier, we can grant elevated access to our Atlassian cloud with a click of an approval. Prior to using Multiplier, when the request for elevated permissions came in, we had to manually label the ticket with admin access and then transition the ticket depending so we could revisit it later to see whether access was still needed or not. We were keeping track of it using notes, calendars. We also had to manually go into Atlassian, add them to the Atlassian created cloud admin group, then remove access after it was no longer needed. As you can see, this is a lot of manual labor right there. Now using Multiplier, when a request for elevated permissions is submitted and approved, the requester is automatically provisioned into the appropriate group based on the type of access they selected. They can select multiple access type, allowing for both Jira and Confluence access requests to be submitted within the same ticket. We can also set a duration to revoke user access after X amount of days. As you can see, we have 3, 5, or 7 days as the options. After the duration expires, Multiplier will comment on the existing ticket. The requester can also submit another ticket if they need more time with elevated permissions. This is really helpful as we don't have to track people down to see if they still need access, remove them from the group, and close out the ticket with the comment. Here you can see some comments added by Multiplier. When we enabled revoke user access after the selected duration in Multiplier's configurations, which we have set for all of our elevated access request apps. In this example, you will see the provisioning comment and deprovisioning comments from Multiplier. First, the ticket is transitioned to closed. Then Multiplier will add the following comments. The first comment is showing the application that was requested, which user requested it, and which Okta group they were provisioned to. Now, as I mentioned about the revoke access after selected duration, the second comment is showing the application that was initially requested, as well as which user is being deprovisioned and from what group after the time duration has been met. Automation for customer-facing comments. You have access, now what? Automated assistance via comment. Some apps are intuitive, others need onboarding instructions. With Jira Automation plus Multiplier Smart Values, we can detect when app-specific instructions exist, otherwise send a clean generic provisioning message. Using the multiplier fields in Jira Automation, we create an automation that adds a comment to the ticket when it is closed. We use a generic comment for all our applications right now. The blue arrow highlights the comment posted to the requester after the ticket is closed. The automation dynamically populates the requested application name using smart values. We also included smart values for end user instructions, allowing application-specific guidance configured in Multiplier to be included when we need it. Automation for changing issue statuses. Some apps have skim, some don't. How to handle different app provisioning methods. Consistent end user experience for both automatic and manual provisioning. Auto provision requests close immediately after approval and fulfillment. Manual requests route to a JSM queue for action. Application tags can also be used with Jira Automation to help transition to a particular status by referencing the multiplier fields in Jira Automation. This screen shows how we associate multiplier application tags to use in Jira Automations with transitions for any application that we currently have auto provision set up for, whether it's elevated or standard access. While we do have automatic provisioning in place, we still have applications that require manual provisioning. We first focused on automating our most popular applications. We currently do have applications that do require manual provisioning, as we look to get every application to the auto provisioning state outside of birthright apps. On this screen, it shows how we associated this application with particular tags using Jira automations for any application that requires manual provisioning. Here is the automation we set up to transition a requested work item depending on what tags are associated with multiplier applications. Like I showed you in the previous two slides, Atlassian and HubSpot had different tags. So for both steps after an approval in this automation, if the software tag associated with the application request matches manual provisioning, then comment on the work item internally, and it will transition to the ticket to waiting for support so it can be actioned on. Else if the software tag associated with the application request matches standard or admin access, then transition that ticket to closed, as we have set up auto provisioning for those applications. This is an example of using multiplier fields in Jira Automation for requests that require manual provisioning. If the application is tagged manual provisioning in multiplier and the ticket has been approved, the ticket goes from waiting for approval to waiting for support, and the automation adds an internal comment. Please work on manual provisioning for Slack. The application name is pulled in dynamically. The internal comment is visible only to IT Ops. This automation removes the need to manually determine which applications require manual action and ensures the correct requests are transitioned appropriately. Experiment beta. Okta groups beyond app access. Allow users to opt in for experiments betas. Beta groups to test major changes before full rollout. Previously, users submitted tickets and IT manually added requester. With multiplier, enrollment became self-serve. So in multiplier, you can create an application, which we did for our beta testing group for Okta FastPass. They would be able to select this app from the catalog after selecting access request. It will also auto transition to closed, and the requester will be provisioned for the Okta FastPass group. It uses the same Jira automation as shown previously to transition the work item based on the application tag. Here's the Okta FastPass provisioning flow for our beta group we set up. We initially announced this in the company meeting before rolling it out and how to request access. First step, the request is approved. 2, multiplier provisions the requester to the beta Okta group associated with FastPass. The beta group has already been added to certain policies in Okta to allow for the use of Okta FastPass. 3, the user is then assigned to their respective MDM group, Intune for Windows or Kanji for Mac. The application is then installed on their work device, pushed from the MDM. The requester can now add their ISOS Tech account to the Okta FastPass app, and now is able to access Okta FastPass using biometrics. This flow happens with the click of an approval. Now I'll be handing it back over to Andrew. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. I think, one call out on that FastPass one, I think our CEO went and submitted a ticket right away, and he was just so excited how it just automatically happened on the back end. And we didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. It just kind of all flowed from multiplier into Okta into our different MDM tools. So it's been pretty well received. Marshall, if you could promote my slide, that'd be great. Thank you. Cool. So I think, like I said, those are some of the use cases that we use. We have some other ones, but then those are our favorite or the most interesting ones. So what did we gain from doing this implementation, the benefits of using multiplier? Like Austin said, we have some time-bound access policies handled automatically. No tickets and pending status, no tickets to go back and review, no sticky notes. It just automatically happens. We don't have to do anything. And our users know, like, hey, at 7 days, it's going to go away. There's no inconsistent, when do we get back to it? Things like that. The system handles it. We don't have to think about it. It just happens on the back end. Every request now is auditable and consistent. It's, we've gotten rid of that idea of just add them to the group. I'm in a rush. I'm in the middle of something. I'm presenting in a webinar. I got to add somebody real quick to this Okta group because they're blocked from doing work. So don't have to do that anymore. It all just happens. We can audit it for our compliance requirements, and it's consistent and a known security approach. The intelligent automation with context, Austin showed like the tagging between manual and automatic provisioning. Our goal is to get everything under the automatic provisioning. Some tools, the skim is not as helpful as others. We'll call it HubSpot here on that one. The skim is inconsistent at best. And so some of those we still have to do some manual provisioning, but our goal is to get as much automatically provisioned as humanly possible. The Jira comments automatically populate with the relevant app details. We don't have to go looking for the relevant wiki pages anymore. It's just provided. If we have specific instructions for that app, if it's not as intuitive as others, it happens automatically. We put it into Multiplier as an app-specific note, and then our automation will see that it's there and use that one instead of that generic one. And then tickets close automatically once the access is provisioned. So a lot of this is kind of, we've taken a bit of an iterative approach. Before Multiplier, we were manually processing requests. Context lives in people's heads. I might know how to add this to the right group, but I might not have, written any or adequate documentation for Austin to pick up that task. SLAs would slip because, we're in meetings, we're doing other stuff, we're handling fires elsewhere. And so SLAs inevitably slip, which impacts, our end users. After Multiplier, it auto provisions whenever possible. We only see the edge cases in our ITQ. Faster approvals, happier users. We get to focus on that strategy, the security, just be very intentional about it and thinking about how we want to provision things as opposed to just doing it quickly because we're in the middle of 3 different things at one time. We've tried to take an iterative approach to deployment. So what we've done so far is, apps from Okta are imported. We've built out the automation that Austin showed. We're currently in IT ops are managing approvals and then permissions escalation, things like that. And then, trying to figure out the groups for non-birthright applications and get those implemented. That's the part we're working on right now. Our future state, once we do, we finish with the groups that we want to set up, try to really update our approval workflows. Sometimes we in IT ops are not the most appropriate person to provide an approval. Maybe we don't know what's in a particular wiki space that, maybe it's sensitive information. Maybe it's not information that should be shared with a particular group or what have you. We don't always know that. We don't have access to all of them. So trying to push approvals to the right person to make that decision, in the JSM flow using Multiplier. So it might go to their manager. It might, if it's a particular app that is sensitive information, we might have it go to the app owner instead. And I'm also really excited to roll out the Atlassian and Google group requests. I think there's some Google groups that we automatically populate using our Okta profile information, but there's tons of other groups that, we constantly get these tickets that it's like, hey, can you add me to this sales group or can you add me to this group? And like, I'm excited to get rid of that and just have, handle it through here, provide a group owner, things like that. So still some work to do. I think we've already seen a tremendous amount of improvement so far, but I think there's a lot more upside that we can start to implement over time using Multiplier to get even more time back to help support our end users is kind of our primary driver with this. So I think that's it. So Amresh, I'll hand it back to you. We can do some Q&A and
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. I think this is really interesting to see how like at the end of the day, it's all about serving the end users, and it looks like this has sort of freed up a lot of mental sort of like overhead for you to be able to do that. So I have a few questions, and then we can open this up to like the audience. And if you have any questions, I think I'm seeing a few coming in. So I guess my first question was maybe like, I don't know if you can think of the time and jog your memory back to like the state that you've described before Multiplier. How was there a particular like trigger or like were there I don't know, how would you help like folks that are like in their organizations trying to prioritize like a project like implementing automating access requests? How should they think about that? And like I don't know if you have any personal experiences around like what put that on the map for you.
Yeah, I think for me, I think, I always think about like an iterative approach, right? Like don't try to boil the ocean all at one time. And so I think for us, and, when I've worked with a couple other customers, it's really around, what's the start, right? Like what's the biggest win for the smallest amount of effort? I think the other thing that I would consider is also like just kind of the larger strategy. I think when we looked at this, it's like, we knew we wanted some of the automation pieces. We knew we had some one-offs that were unique to us. And so we thought about the architecture of the automation, but then also just like which apps are going to yield us the biggest time savings on our part, and do those first. And truth be told, we have some that we might get a request or two a year, and like we'll probably do it just because like we can, reach our lofty goal. But in reality, like, does it save us much? I think, setting it up is really easy. So like, it would behoove us to do it. But, if we're seeing one or two a year, like it's very low hanging fruit that I'm probably not even thinking about. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that makes a lot of sense. The other question that I have, and I'll come back to Christian's question on the screen in a second. Can you talk us through like the timeline for, like, I guess you mentioned like the roadmap and all the things you've accomplished so far, and the plan sort of in terms of moving forward and all the other apps you're sort of bringing into Multiplier. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the timeline so far? Like how long has it been like from deciding on Multiplier to having, I guess, the first workflow live within that?
Sure. Austin, I'd say keep me honest on this one, but I think the first workflow was pretty quick, like within a few weeks. I think easily within one sprint, which for us is every 2 weeks. I think for, there's some, I think it's interesting, like as we've started to use it more and more, like I think we've had more ideas about workflows that we can use it for. So I think that Okta FastPass was one that I don't think we had initially envisioned, but then as we started like as a team to talk through it, it was like, oh, like we could just do this and not have to, I think before we were adding people to an Okta group for these betas and these experiments that we do. And, now we don't have to do that. So I think the more we've done, like the more, and I think I'll let Austin like speak to it, but it definitely seems like it's getting faster, right? Like I think all three of us now on the team, add in provisioning groups and things like that, where before like Austin was the primary driver. So I think, again, he did all the heavy lifting initially. And I think me and Jake, the other guy from our team, like have been reaping the benefits of how easy it is once it's all set up. So.
Cool. Awesome. There's a question from the audience. Maybe I can maybe take that. So the question is, considering Atlassian has had a lot of connectivity issues in the last month, is there anything that provides contingency? I guess this is maybe a question for me to answer as the Multiplier rep on the call. I mean, we haven't seen any like particular tickets coming in from customers, but the way we've approached this is, we typically like if any operation fails in Multiplier, and typically you'll see that we leave an audit trail on the ticket. But we will know if something has failed and we will retry it. So whether that's telling Jira to like create an issue or transition an issue, sometimes like those fail, and we will retry that. And then if it doesn't work, we will usually leave an audit trail on the ticket that says like why this operation couldn't happen. So most of the times that catches it, but I can understand why some of the connectivity issues are a hot topic right now. Cool.
And Amrish, I would say like the other thing, just to reiterate what you said, it's like the auditability in the comments is huge for us. It's like you can go in and see like, oh, here's why it failed. Here's where it failed. Let's go fix this one piece. And then it would also show us like this didn't provision. Like we've had ones where it provisions and then we've exceeded our license count, and we can see that in the Okta logs and then in the comments. So I think it's all super helpful with the auditability.
Yeah, awesome. Can you maybe talk us? One other question I had was around sort of end user adoption and reception. Like, can you maybe talk a little bit about like what sort of like how did users react to like having this system in place? Was it like completely invisible to them because for them like nothing really changed? What was that like for them?
Yeah, I would say like before I did this webinar, I'm not sure that most of our company even knew we were using Multiplier. Like they're all very well trained, or most of them are very well trained, I should say, to go to our JSM queue and submit issues. And so, we did this kind of in parallel with redoing some of our portal options. And so like added the access requests because it made the most sense. And then, we're doing everything in Multiplier, whether it's in Okta or not, whether it requires the manual provisioning or automatic. I would say like, obviously like my boss knows that we did it and was super excited about it. And like when FastPass just worked, he was so stoked. It was pretty cool to see. So yeah, I would say I think the one pain point we've seen is like, Austin showed that like free text field where, like people can put in use cases or like notes. And I think one thing we've been reconsidering taking that field out on some because people don't realize it's automatic. So they're submitting it and then they're putting, oh, can you also give access to this person and this person and that person? And it's like, well, we don't even see your ticket. So like it just happens and we don't even see we don't see it all happen. And so there's a little bit of like training on our part that we probably should do. And I think just reconsidering the fields and I think for us to like try to keep that iterative process in mind where it's like, we thought this would be helpful, and in reality, it's really not. It's kind of misleading for some and frustrating for us. So
if the end users don't fully know that these are all, most of the times they're going to go through a happy path where no human needs to look at these.
Right.
Maybe the way and I guess you can kind of configure as I think it's interesting, like having that information up front definitely prevents like the back and forth that you would typically need to do in terms of, hey, what kind of permissions would you like? Or like, what's the justification for this? But then at the same time, if they're like using that as a way to ask for additional things that aren't maybe captured in the options, then like that becomes a bit tricky.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think those comments and we've been reviewing them at the initial, after we did the initial implementation, just to learn like, what are we missing? And so like, as an Atlassian partner, we have multiple Atlassian environments. And so we have a demo environment that we hadn't considered giving people access. Like they get it via birthright, most people like in sales and whatnot. And it's like, oh, like there's this whole group of other people that we don't give it to by birthright that we hadn't considered. And so I think it's been interesting seeing the results. And then it's like, what other ideas, stem from the learnings that we have. So.
You mentioned, I think that makes a lot of sense. And one other thing that I was going to ask you was that you mentioned that you have 25 apps out of your 60 that you said are fully automated. Do you think like for like someone wanting to implement this solution, is there like do they need to have a certain like number of their core apps being provisioned through Skim to get value out of a system like this, or how would you kind of think about that?
It's an interesting question. I think the Skim definitely helps. I think because then we don't have to, it just does it automatically. You add them to the group and it happens automatically. I think from an end user perspective, I think it's really helpful for them to see all of our apps, regardless of, they don't care whether it has, at the end of the day, they don't care, right? Whether it has a Skim, whether it provisions, whether it does this and that, like they don't care. They just want their access. And so I think what Multiplier gives us is that unified, request where it doesn't matter. They don't care. That's our problem on the back end. And so I would say like it pulls from your Okta, it gives you the images automatically in most cases. Like, so I think it's the same user experience regardless of you either have one thing in a Skim or 10 things with a Skim and then everything else is manual. I mean, obviously it makes your life easier if it's the Skim. So that'd be ideal. Yeah,
cool. And that's one of the things that we're working on as well. I think I spoke to you briefly about this, but for some organizations, some of the applications, it won't ever really make sense for them to be on the enterprise tier in order to have Skim. So we're looking at, like how we can sort of help bridge the gap for like automating access to those gaps with some AI automations that we're building on our end. So there's going to be more to come on that. And hopefully we can get you live with a couple of those apps as well. I guess like final question like that I have, and like if there's any more from the audience, feel free to put them in the chat. I guess, are there any things like now that you're sort of like you're sort of like up and running with the system, would you have done anything differently like when you were getting started with implementing or like the system, or is there anything people should know perhaps before like they start implementing like Multiplier?
I don't know, Austin, do you have anything that comes to mind? I'm trying to think of, honestly, like I think from my perspective, it was, Austin did the heavy lifting. So for me, it was like, oh, it was super easy, nothing to change. But I'd be curious, Austin, if you have anything that comes to mind.
I don't think we'd have anything to change. It was, a learning experience. Never used Multiplier before, but as I got to use it, I love it. It's great. Some cool things you can do, and we haven't even touched the surface on all of the other options we can use in Multiplier. So I think it's just a learning curve. I don't know if anything we changed, but like Andrew said, we were redoing our portal, so it kind of worked to do it coincide with adding Multiplier at the same time.
Yeah, I think, the one thing I might have changed is we kind of threw this in mid-sprint. It was like, oh, we're going to do this next sprint. Let's go. And I think for us, like maybe taking a step back and thinking through like, like the naming conventions, the how we manage the security of the groups, and just I think maybe a little bit more of an intentional plan for rolling out. I think like I said before, we've gotten a lot of our like most commonly requested ones behind it. And I think, maybe we could have done a little more due diligence of like, well, here's the other ones that we, are really important that maybe aren't like commonly requested, but like are important nonetheless. Like we use NetSuite as our ERP. And so like, maybe we should have done more with that, even though it's, primarily just our finance team that access it and not the larger organization. So maybe looking at those ones that are high priority, but low volume of requests and be a little more intentional around those. Like maybe the thing we didn't do that I'd probably do next time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's cool. Awesome. Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions from the chat. So I think we can maybe give people back some of their time if that's the case. But in terms of next steps for everybody who signed up to this webinar, we're gonna. Oh, there we go. We do have another question, so we'll take that. Marshall, do you want to? Yeah, there we go. So, can you have edge cases where there are multi-level approvals for some of the apps? And how about app requests which are not present in Okta? Do we merge similar requests? So, do either of you want to take this? I believe you've covered the second part of the question, but do you guys want to take a stab at this, and then I can sort of come in and try to cover some of the gaps?
I would say, like from the app requests not present in Okta, for sure. You just add it as an app. You look for it's got a little like search for the logo, which is pretty nifty in Multiplier, and then that's when we label them manual provisioning, just because in most cases, if it's not an Okta, like most of our automatic provisioning is through Skim. And so I guess in theory, we could, if they have an API, we could do that through automation for Jira if we wanted to. But for sure, like we have a number of app requests that are not present in Okta that show up in Multiplier. And I think the benefit of that for our end users is they don't know the difference at all, like none whatsoever. It's entirely our problem on the back end. I shouldn't say problem. It's ours to do on the back end. So yeah.
And then, do you have any apps that currently require multiple approvals? Is that something you've set up?
I don't think so.
Not that we have set up, but we've talked about doing that.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about this, but Multiplier, like what we can do is populate a list of users or groups into your approver field. So that can typically include more than one user. So out of the box, you get the option of choosing the system owner, the user's manager, and any other Jira user or group as people you can insert into an approver field. And then you can have the approver configuration on your like JSM like approver configuration, where you can say how many approvals are needed before a request is considered approved. So you can configure it that way. You can also set up multi-level approvals. I mean, Multiplier needs to know what stage to insert the approver fields into. So if you do have multiple statuses where you have approvers, you could also do it that way. I think the first step like we will automate like adding people into one step, but yeah, it's also possible. I've seen that happen. I've seen people do that before. Did we answer that question, Nishant, for you? I will assume yes. Okay, perfect. Let us know if you have any more questions. Let me know. I'll leave it. Okay. So this is also talking about approvals. I would use automation to change who the approval would go to. Special case or manager wasn't to be used. Is there a way to prevent Jira from firing an approval email before we have the automation switch approved? It's a good question. So if I understand correctly, in this particular scenario, can you maybe talk us through this scenario a little bit more? I mean, I would imagine that if there is a special case that you already know ahead of time, then for that particular scenario, multiplier can override who the approval goes to for that particular instance. And so I believe in if the field isn't getting set, the notification wouldn't go out. But I would need a bit more context to be able to properly answer this. So feel free to either give us more details, or you can email me afterwards, and we can maybe also try and better understand what's going on. Can you guys think of what this might be referring to?
Well, I think because you can set the approver per provisioning group anyway, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the manager that's at an app provisioning group level.
Correct.
So that might handle some of the kind of one-off use case of this.
Yeah, exactly. If it is if you have certain scenarios where for some reason you want certain specific people to approve those requests, you can configure that when you're setting up the different types of access someone can request, different entitlements that they're able to ask for, and those can all be fine-grained. Okay. Okay, for a specific user. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's a good question. I would need to take a look at what Jira lets us do. I have a feeling that there might be some limitations on what we can do here, and it might end up we can talk about this, Christian. If you want to email me afterwards, and we can maybe talk through how we could help you work around this. But I can see why you would want a scenario like that. So it's interesting to kind of understand this context a bit more. Do we have any other final questions before we wrap? No, I think that might be it. So I guess in terms of next steps, we'll obviously send out a recording to everybody that joined. We'll also have a special offer for Multiplier. We're going to offer a discount to folks that joined this webinar today. So look out for my email with those details. And if you have any other questions for myself, Andrew, or Austin, feel free to reach out. I can forward questions to them. And look forward to seeing you all at another event in the future. Thanks so much for taking the time to join this conversation today.